Welcome back, Mighty Habit fans. So glad to have you with us. I'm Steven,
And I'm Mary.
and today we are diving deep
Eve.
into a book that's been making waves and sparking a ton of conversations. Untamed by Glennon Doyle.
You know, this one's really captured something. I think it's so much more than just your typical self-help book. It really digs into what it means to let go of all those expectations society throws at us.
Yeah, even the ones we put on ourselves.
Totally.
And the way the book is set up,
Yeah.
caged, keys,
Yeah.
free. I mean, come on.
Right.
It's like an invitation to figure out what this journey is all about. So let's start with that first part, caged.
Okay.
What really stood out to you about how Doyle sets up this whole idea of being caged in the first place?
You know, one thing that really hit me was her description of this idea she calls the knowing. Like that inner voice we all have. It's like this gut feeling, this sense of what's right, even if it goes against everything else. Doyle says we're all born with it, but it gets drowned out over time.
It's like we're taught to ignore our own intuition
Right.
and instead value what other people think more than our own truth. But how does that actually happen? Does she give examples of how that knowing gets silenced?
Oh, yeah, tons. She has these great stories from her own life. Like there's this one where she's at a fancy dinner party, everyone's dressed up, talking politics, and she realizes she's just nodding along, even though she totally disagrees with everything they're saying.
Oh, I've been there. It's like you don't want to rock the boat.
Totally.
But I'm guessing Doyle isn't saying we should just go around being rude and disagreeing with everyone.
No, not at all. It's not about being disagreeable for the sake of it.
Okay.
It's about recognizing when we're silencing ourselves out of fear.
Right.
Fear of judgment or rejection, you know. It's about knowing when we're being polite versus when we're being untrue to ourselves.
So finding that balance,
Yeah.
respecting others, but also staying true to our own knowing.
Exactly.
It makes me think of something else she talks about, this whole idea of perfectionism.
Yes. Especially for women.
Oh,
You know, like that perfect woman we're all supposed to be striving for. The perfect wife, the perfect mother, perfect employee, all while looking effortlessly stylish.
Right. Like we're supposed to do it all flawlessly.
Yes.
But isn't there some value in wanting to improve ourselves?
Yeah.
Where's the line between healthy self-improvement and this soul-crushing perfectionism?
That's the heart of what Doyle's getting at, you know. She doesn't say we shouldn't try to improve,
Okay.
but she makes a distinction between striving for genuine growth
Right.
and striving out of fear, that fear of not being good enough.
So it's about the motivation.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Are we pushing ourselves because we want to grow and learn or because we're terrified of being judged?
Makes sense. I'm reminded of that example she uses in Caged about the cheetah at the zoo.
Oh, yeah. Pacing back and forth.
Trapped, totally out of sync with its natural instincts.
Right. Such a powerful image for how we can get trapped by our own limiting beliefs, even if they don't make sense deep down.
It's like we've created these cages for ourselves,
Totally.
pacing back and forth within these artificial boundaries. Doyle really makes you think about the ways we might be unknowingly caged.
That's what's so great about this book. It's not about giving you a set of rules. It's about making you question the rules you've been living by.
I like that.
To look at your own cage and ask yourself, how did I get here? And do I want to stay?
Okay, so we've talked about silencing our knowing, falling into the trap of perfectionism, but there's another big cage Doyle explores.
People pleasing.
Huge, especially for women.
Oh, absolutely. It's like we're taught from day one to put everyone else's needs before our own.
Be the peacemaker,
Right, the caregiver, always put on a happy face.
even when you're falling apart inside.
Exactly.
We've all done it at some point.
Yeah.
But she's not saying we should just become totally self-centered, right?
Right. No.
There's got to be a middle ground.
It's about realizing that our needs are just as important.
Okay.
And sometimes saying no is an act of self-love.
It's like that oxygen mask analogy. Right?
Yes.
You have to put your own mask on first before you can help others.
You can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. You need to fill your own cup first. And that means setting boundaries and learning to say no.
Yes. Without guilt or apology.
Boundaries are so important,
Yeah.
but they can be tough to figure out.
They are.
Where do you draw the line?
It's a process.
How do you communicate your needs effectively?
Right, but here's the thing. Doyle doesn't present boundaries as these rigid walls.
Okay.
She talks about them more like fences.
Fences.
Think about it. A fence defines your space, right?
Okay.
You can still connect with your neighbors,
Yeah.
talk over the fence, but you have your own area where you feel safe and comfortable.
I like that analogy. It's not about isolating yourself, but having your own space to thrive.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means saying no
Right.
to protect that space,
Absolutely. And that can be hard.
especially with loved ones,
Right.
people who have expectations of us.
But ultimately, setting boundaries is about respecting yourself.
It's about self-respect. I
Hmm.
like that framing. It makes it feel less selfish and more empowering.
Exactly.
Wow, we've covered so much. We're just scratching the surface of Cage.
I know, right?
It's making me rethink so many
Me
things.
too.
Doyle really challenges those deeply ingrained beliefs we often take for granted.
It's true. She's not afraid to shake things up, make us a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I think that's why so many people are connecting with the book.
It's like she's giving you permission to question everything.
Yes.
Break free from those cages that are holding you back.
Absolutely.
And speaking of breaking free, in the next part of the book, Keys,
Yeah.
Doyle delves into the tools we can use to actually unlock those cages.
It's like she's handing us a set of keys,
Yeah.
saying, okay, you know what's holding you back.
Right.
Let's figure out how to get out.
Okay, I can't wait to explore those keys.
Me too.
All right.
All right, you ready to unlock some of these cages?
Let's do it. What's the first key Doyle gives us?
Well, she starts with something that might seem a little counterintuitive. Feeling our feelings fully. You know, we're so used to avoiding or suppressing those difficult emotions.
Like anger.
Sadness, fear, like we're supposed to just slap on a happy face and pretend everything's fine.
Yeah, even when it's not.
Yeah.
But Doyle's saying we should do the opposite.
She's saying those emotions, even the tough ones, are actually valuable messengers.
Interesting.
They can give us insights into what we need and desire if we're willing to listen.
So instead of running away from them, lean into them. That's pretty different from what we're usually told, isn't it?
It is a shift, you know? Doyle argues that when we numb those so-called negative emotions,
Right.
we end up numbing ourselves to the positive ones too.
Ah, so it's like dimming the volume on your whole emotional range.
Exactly. You might not hear the unpleasant static, but you also miss out on the richness of the music.
That's a great analogy. So how do we actually do this? How do we sit with those uncomfortable feelings? It's not exactly easy.
Doyle has this image that I find really helpful.
Okay.
She says, what we resist persists.
Hmm.
It's like when you try to hold a beach ball underwater,
Right. The more you push it down.
the harder it fights back up.
Yeah.
So she suggests a different approach.
Okay.
Imagine you put that beach ball in a stream.
Okay.
It might bob around a bit, but eventually it'll float downstream.
Right.
Our emotions are kind of similar.
Okay.
When we stop resisting them, they can flow through us.
So feeling our feelings fully.
That's one key.
What's another one?
Another essential key is self-compassion.
Okay.
You know, we can be so hard on ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
We set these impossible standards
Right.
and then beat ourselves up when we inevitably fall short.
My inner critic has a PhD in negativity.
I hear you. But how do we actually cultivate self-compassion?
Yeah, it's a nice idea.
It can seem kind of abstract,
Right.
but Doyle gives us some practical tools.
Like what?
First, just notice when you're being self-critical.
Okay.
Pay attention to those negative thoughts.
Awareness is the first step.
Exactly. Then gently challenge those thoughts.
How do you do that?
Ask yourself, is this really true?
Okay.
Would I say this to a dear friend?
We're usually way tougher on ourselves than we would ever be on someone we care about.
Right. So try replacing that harsh inner critic with a more supportive voice. Imagine what you'd say to a friend who's struggling,
Yeah.
and then offer that same kindness to yourself.
So it's like turning your inner critic into your inner cheerleader.
Yeah. And this ties back to that idea of intuition.
Oh, yeah.
When we're constantly beating ourselves up, it's hard to hear that inner voice.
Like the static's too loud to hear the music.
Exactly. Self-compassion creates the space for that voice to emerge.
Okay, so we've got feeling our feelings, we've got self-compassion. What else?
Setting boundaries.
Oh, yeah, we touched on that earlier.
Oh, it's so important. It deserves its own spotlight.
It's one of those things a lot of people struggle with, right?
Absolutely. Boundaries are like velvet ropes.
Ropes.
You know, at those fancy clubs, they define a space, create a sense of what's allowed and what's not.
So boundaries are about protecting your time and energy.
Your emotional well-being.
It can be hard to say no, though.
It is, especially to people we love.
Right.
But think of it like building a muscle.
Okay.
The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And Doyle offers a great image here, too.
Okay.
She says, we often think of boundaries as walls,
Okay.
but they're more like fences.
Fencing.
Walls block everything out, but fences allow for connection while still maintaining that separation.
I like that. Makes boundaries feel less harsh.
Yeah. It's not about shutting people out.
Right. Just creating healthy space.
For yourself and your relationships.
So we've got feeling our feelings, practicing self-compassion, setting boundaries. Any other keys Doyle gives us?
One more that I think is super powerful, embracing imperfection.
Okay.
We live in a world obsessed with perfection.
Oh, tell me about it.
But Doyle argues that this pursuit of flawlessness is actually keeping us from true joy and freedom.
So instead of striving for perfection, we should embrace our imperfections. That's kind of a radical idea.
It is, but what if our imperfections are what make us unique and interesting?
Interesting.
What if our flaws are actually our superpowers in disguise?
I love that.
Yeah.
But how do we actually do that? It's so easy to get caught up in self-criticism.
Doyle encourages us to practice gratitude for all parts of ourselves, even the ones we might not love right away.
Okay.
Ask yourself, what if my imperfections are actually opportunities for growth? What if my flaws are what connect me to others because, hey, we all have them?
It's like that Japanese art of kintsugi,
Yes.
where they repair broken pottery with gold. Those cracks become part of the beauty, part of the story.
Beautiful analogy.
Maybe it's the same with us.
Right.
Our imperfections are part of what makes us whole.
And this acceptance of our imperfections, of our whole selves, is a key ingredient in that final part of the book, Free.
Okay, so we've got the keys.
We do.
Feeling our feelings, practicing self-compassion, setting boundaries, embracing imperfection.
They're ready.
Now I want to explore what free actually looks like. What does it mean to actually step into that untamed state?
Well, Doyle doesn't present free as a destination.
Okay.
It's more like a way of being. It's about showing up in the world as your most authentic self, even when it's scary, even when you don't know the outcome.
So it's about embracing the journey.
Exactly. The constant evolution, the shedding of old skins, stepping into a more authentic version of yourself.
So it sounds like we're talking about more of a constant evolution than reaching some end goal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think that's actually where the real freedom comes in.
Yeah, no pressure to be perfectly untamed.
Right. It's the journey, the messiness, the figuring it out as you go.
I like that a lot. And Doyle emphasizes this idea that it's going to be different for everyone, right? There's no one way to do this.
Absolutely. No one size fits all. It's all about what works for you, what lights you up, what makes you feel truly alive.
It's tuning into that knowing we talked about
Yeah.
and trusting it to lead the way.
Exactly. And sometimes that means going against the grain, questioning those expectations and norms that we've just accepted without even thinking.
That's got to be one of the toughest things for people, right?
Mhm.
Breaking free from all that.
It is a challenge, but man, is it liberating. There's this story in Free that really stuck with me. It's about Doyle choosing her family over this amazing job opportunity.
Oh, yeah, that one was powerful. She had this incredible chance to advance her career, but it would have meant uprooting her whole family.
And potentially putting a strain on her relationship with her wife.
Tough choice. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people would have jumped at the opportunity.
Right.
The prestige, the external validation.
For sure. But Doyle, she chose her family, her happiness, her own sense of integrity.
And that's untaming yourself.
Right.
Defining success on your own terms, not by what society tells you.
Yes. It's about figuring out what truly matters to you and having the courage to go after it. And the thing is, Doyle says she felt this immense sense of relief when she made that decision.
Like a weight lifted off.
Totally. It was like she finally aligned herself with her values, and that alignment brought her more freedom than any job ever could.
It makes you think, doesn't it?
Hmm.
All those times we hold ourselves back because of fear or because we're trying to please other people.
Mm-hmm.
What if we just embraced those feelings, set those boundaries, and gave ourselves permission to be perfectly imperfect?
What could we accomplish then? It's like Doyle's giving us this roadmap to a more authentic life, but it's not a straight line, is it? More like a wild adventure.
Yeah, with twists and turns.
Exactly. Unexpected detours.
That's the beauty of it, right?
Yeah.
Embracing the uncertainty and just trusting the process.
Absolutely. And Doyle is really honest about the fact that living this way isn't always easy. There will be challenges, setbacks, moments of doubt. It's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah, there's got to be some rain sometimes too, right?
Yeah, of course. But those challenges, they're all part of the growth process. It's in those messy, uncomfortable moments that we really learn and evolve.
You got to go through it to get to the other side.
Right. And Doyle gives us some really practical tools to navigate those tough times. She talks about self-care, having a strong support system, staying connected to that inner knowing, even when everything feels chaotic.
It's about building resilience, having those inner resources to help you weather the storms.
Exactly. And remembering that you're not alone in this. We all face those challenges.
We all have those moments of doubt.
But we also have this incredible capacity for growth and transformation.
You know, this whole conversation is reminding me of that quote by Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure.
Oh, I love that quote.
It feels so relevant to what Doyle's talking about in Untamed.
It does.
It's about owning our power, embracing our wildness, creating a life that feels truly authentic.
Stepping into our full potential instead of shrinking back from it.
This deep dive into Untamed has been incredible. I know I've got a lot to think about. What about you? Any final takeaways you want to leave our listeners with?
Oh, so many. But if I had to choose one, it would be this. Give yourself permission to be untamed. Permission to question the rules, break free from those cages, and create a life that feels truly yours.
Permission to be untamed. I love that. Such a powerful message.
It is. And remember, everyone's journey is going to look different.
Right.
There's no right or wrong way to do this. Listen to your heart, trust your instincts, and just keep moving forward.
Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thanks so much for sharing your insights on Untamed with us.
It's been my pleasure.
And to all you Mighty Habits fans out there, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Be sure to follow or subscribe to Mighty Habits for more deep dives into fascinating topics. Until next time, keep those minds curious and those habits mighty.